Good morning, Gretchen Ho. We're coming to you on this Wednesday, the 21st day of January, bringing you Morning Matters because your morning's matters. Get to the stories that matter today. Administration allies are already slamming the impeachment case against President Marcos as dead on arrival at the lower house. Congressman Edgar Erice, for one, dismissed the filing as basura, claiming it lacks substance and relies solely on news articles as evidence. The Senate Minority Bloc has released a report on a flood control scandal, but Senate President Tito Sotto dismissed the report as unofficial, calling it a piece of paper until it's calendared on the plenary floor. And fewer Filipinos consider themselves poor as self-rated poverty ratings hit a record low of 37% by the end of 2025. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. Now, first in the agenda, the first impeachment complaint filed against President Bong Marcos is already facing pushback from lawmakers, with one congressman calling it basura or trash and questioning its basis. Here's a report.
The first impeachment complaint filed against President Bong Marcos is not gaining traction among some lawmakers. Caloocan City 2nd District Representative Edgar Erice bluntly dismissed the impeachment complaint as garbage. Filed by Attorney Andre De Jesus against President Marcos, Erice said De Jesus presented only news articles as evidence.
Yung sinampa niya na impeachment complaint ay basura. 15 pages na walang mga ebidensya kundi mga news article. At sa tingin ko ay hindi ito wala ito sa forma at walang substance yung kanyang i-final na impeachment complaint.
Erice also raised questions about De Jesus and about the endorsement of the complaint by Pusong Pinoy Party List Representative Jet Nisay.
Nahihiwagaan ako, especially with the endorser. Tahimik lang kasi si Kong Jeff. Nagulat na lang ako siya yung nag-endorse. And he's identified with the Garcias, who are known stalwarts of the national of the NUP. At yung NUP mismo, sinabi nila na hindi sila papayag sa mga impeachment laban sa Pangulo.
In response, De Jesus said Erice is simply making noise. He also strongly denied claims that the complaint was filed just to trigger the one-year bar rule.
I specifically, expressly, categorically, and absolutely deny that this is motivated just for the purpose of triggering a ban. But these are valid, legitimate grounds that have been raised on so many occasions, not just by mainstream politicians, but also by the people at large. But nothing has been done about these particular issues.
Political analyst Professor Ranjit Rai of the University of the Philippines also weighed in, saying the impeachment complaint against President Marcos appears weak and may fail early in the process. In an interview with 1PH sa Totoo Lang, he noted that the Philippines, impeachment is often less about legal substance and more about political numbers.
Mukhang hindi naman siya substantial na complaint, mukhang doon pa lang sa pag-file baka mamatay na kaagad, no? Kasi alam mo ang impeachment sa lalo sa Pilipinas hindi naman din tungkol sa substance at how should we say this, hindi siya really about the substantive issues, but more it's a political exercise.
Rai added, while impeachment against a sitting president may be possible, it is not likely because the outcome depends on House dynamics. He also pointed out that the Supreme Court has raised procedural requirements, making impeachment harder to push through.
Mas mahirap na ngayon mag-impeach ng public official dahil sa Supreme Court additions dun sa procedure, no? So medyo mataas yung procedural requirement para ma-impeach.
EB Vice President Sara Duterte expressed doubts over the impeachment complaint filed against President Bong Marcos. She compared it to a vaccine, suggesting it was filed to shield the president from further attempts. The vice president added she expects another impeachment complaint to be filed against her as well. But Duterte said, quote, "It's all about money."
Alam na natin yun na mangyayari yun. And as expected as well, magiging katulad lang din yan nung nakaraan na ginagawang fundraising, no, ng mga members of the House of Representatives yung pagpirma nila sa impeachment. It's all about the money dyan.
Senators Amy Marcos and Rodante Marcoleta have released a minority report on the alleged flood control scandal. Senate President Tito Soto, however, brushed it aside, calling the report just a piece of paper unless taken up on the upper chamber's floor. Here's the full report.
Minority senators have released their report on the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee's inquiry into the flood control scandal. The 576-page report is based on 6 hearings conducted by the committee, 3 held when Senator Dante Marcoleta was still chair, and the remaining hearings after Senator Ping Lacson took over. The minority report identified former House Speaker Martin Romualdez along with former Department of Public Works and Highways officials Roberto Bernardo, Henry Alcantara, and Bryce Hernandez as the individuals most accountable for the alleged scheme. It also named several current and former senators accused of requesting or receiving kickbacks. Among those named were former Senator Bong Revilla and incumbent Senator Joel Villanueva. However, the report stressed that the alleged involvement of former Senator Nancy Binay, former Senate President Cheese Escudero, and Senator Jinggoy Estrada still requires more solid evidence. Estrada and Escudero are both members of the Senate minority bloc. The report further cited 17 congressmen mentioned by the so-called king and queen of contractors, Curly and Sara Diskaya. Ultimately, the minority concluded that all available evidence points to Romualdez, stating that he cannot be absolved of responsibility. But the question remains, are there higher officials involved? Here's what Marcoleta had to say.
Merong question mark nga sa makikita nyo rito. Yung arrows kasi, base sa nagtuturo sa kanya at mababasa nyo nun sa kanilang mga testimonies, individual. Talagang, for example, Gutesa, tinuro si Saldico and Martin Romualdez. Si Diskaya, nabanggit din ang pangalan ni Martin Romualdez. At yung mga iba, si Alcantara, si Bryce Hernandez, pinagtuturo kung sino-sino at papunta lahat sa direksyon ni Martin Romualdez.
Meantime, Senator Amy Marcos was absent from Monday's Blue Ribbon Committee hearing. Despite her absence, Marcos issued strong remarks on what she believes was or was not revealed during the inquiry. Senator Marcoleta, who attended the hearing, criticized it as lacking substance, saying it focused primarily on former DPWH Secretary Manny Bonoan's mismatched grid coordinates.
Wala rin na bunyag. Ayaw ko sanang magsalita ng makakasakit o makaka-offend sa aking mga kasamahan. Pero yun naman ang nakikita ng mga Pilipino. Nakikita naman natin na parang wala namang pagtutuunan nito. Laging bitin laging may kulang.
Inumpisahan na naman sa MYPS. So, anong mapaprofit natin doon? Wala. The coordinates are wrong. The discrepancies, sa kanila nga, mga 2 kilometers lang ang discrepancy. Doon sa ginawa namin, was able to find out a variance or discrepancy between 65 or 67 kilometers to 400 kilometers. It is a little bit disappointing on my part kasi I was expecting more. Lalong-lalo na nandoon si Yusek Bernardo, the former Yusek Bernardo, at nandun din si Yusek Trigib.
Senate President Tito Soto dismissed the minority report as merely a piece of paper unless taken up on the upper chamber's floor. Soto emphasized that it is official report of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee that carries weight for investigation and prosecution once adopted in plenary. He also responded to the criticisms raised by Senator Marcos and Marcoleta.
Kulang na oras kaya nga sa susunod, di umatin sila sa susunod para yung mga kulang, mapunuan nila.
And coming right up, we'll discuss the impeachment complaints against the president and the vice president with Bukidnon Representative Jonathan Keith Flores. Don't go away. Morning Matters will be back after a quick break. Keep it here. Good morning, I'm Gretchen Ho. Here on Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and give you the context behind headlines. As you know, the first impeachment complaint against President Bongbong Marcos has been filed with the House of Representatives, and it accuses the president of violating the Constitution and betraying public trust. In response, Malacanang said it will respect constitutional processes and trusts the Congress to handle the matter with integrity. Meanwhile, lawmakers are awaiting the Supreme Court's decision on the motion for reconsideration in the impeachment case against the Vice President. Vice President Sara Duterte was impeached in February of 2025, but in July, the Supreme Court declared the impeachment unconstitutional. Joining us now, we have Bukidnon Representative Jonathan Keith Flores. Magandang umaga po sa inyo, Congressman.
Hi, good morning, Gretchen.
Okay, Congressman, I believe your camera is off.
I can't seem to turn it on. I'm sorry. I've been talking to your technical person kanina.
okay.
There must be
Sige,
some
we'll have
glitch
you
or
on audio.
something.
Okay,
Sorry.
the first impeachment complaint of 2026 against the president has already been filed. How many days will it take to get this referred to the Committee on Justice? Am I correct that it takes 10 days to place it in the order of business and then 3 days to refer it to the Justice Committee?
Yes, that's correct, Gretchen. As soon as the Secretary General transmits the impeachment complaint to the office of the Speaker, then the Speaker would have 10 session days to include it in the order of business. And once it's included in the order of business, then we would have at least 3 days to refer it to the Committee on Justice.
Okay. But wala pa pong session sa ngayon. Magsisimula ho ng January 26. Tama po ba? So, January 26 pa po gugulong yan. Is that correct?
Yes po, that's correct. That's when we start, we resume our session. Yeah.
Okay. I do remember that there was a confusion in the first impeachment complaint against the Vice President over when a complaint is deemed initiated. How will the new SC ruling apply here?
The SC ruling just says that it's deemed initiated once it is referred to with either the Committee on Justice, or if we do the third mode, no, once more than a third of the members of the House endorse the same impeachment complaint. Although there are other requirements na nilagay nila ngayon, so medyo mas difficult na po yung third mode.
Yung sa boto ho?
Yes, mas mahirap na. Kasi other than getting the required signatures, the numbers, no, na more than 1/3, dapat bigyan pa ng opportunity to answer and bigyan ng opportunity ang lahat ng members to have copies and all of the evidence that is attached to the impeachment complaint.
Of course, ito nga po nagko-comment nga po yung ibang mga kongresista that this impeachment complaint against the president is dead on arrival. Dahil ho, medyo mahina raw ho yung ebidensya, nakalakip niya, and that it might not withstand constitutional scrutiny. Now, in the past, the placing of complaints was usually delayed to be able to consolidate impeachment complaints that will be filed. So, is there room for that?
Well, that's what I've been hearing ngayon na some people have been commenting on the impeachment complaint and calling it weak and stuff, no? But for me, no, let us let the facts lead the discussion, not emotions or political noise. Kasi ngayon ang naririnig mo is just this or that, but no one has actually ever said that they've studied the complaint that has been filed. In fact, I have not received a copy of it myself, except for those that I have seen in the social media.
Okay. So wala pa ho kayong kopya. But kung sakasakali ho na medyo mahina nga po ito, paano po kaya ang gagawin ng Kongreso? Mag-aantay pa rin po ba? Or meron pa po mong room to wait for other impeachment complaints against the president?
Well, this is my suggestion to those who say that it is a weak complaint or that it is designed to be dismissed. Then they should come up with their own impeachment complaint because there's still time. and they can still file their own impeachment complaint. Everyone is free to file any impeachment complaint. But just the same, all impeachment complaints must be backed up with evidence and with the facts.
Okay, but that became a problem with the impeachment complaint against the Vice President. Yung marami ho nagpo-file, ano? Until when is there allowance for these complaints to be consolidated? Until the Secretary General officially receives it?
No, until it is referred to the Committee on Justice. So from now until after it is included in the order of business, and for as long as it is not yet been referred to the Committee on Justice, then any person can still file an impeachment complaint.
Pero hindi ba ho, yun nga rin ho yung nangyari doon sa Vice Presidente na yung impeachment complaints ay inupuan o nagtagal dito nga po sa office ng Speaker, or am I correct, bago siya i-refer sa Committee on Justice? What was the problem?
I'm sorry, Gretchen, no? But the issue there was that the Secretary General took time to forward the impeachment complaints to the office of the Speaker. That's what the Supreme Court said, na, you know, the Secretary General does not have the authority to sit on the complaints. No? Now, example, assuming that there are other impeachment complaints that will be filed, it does not bar any other impeachment complaints. No? For as long as hindi pa nasimulan ng Committee on Justice ang pag-initiate doon sa impeachment complaint na ni-refer sa Committee ng Justice.
So that means there is... I mean, but doesn't that somehow give a deadline to how long this can be sorted out by the Secretary General?
The Secretary General does not have parang the discretion, no? The discretion. Sorry, the discretion to wait. I'm sorry. The discretion to sit on the complaints. Ang obligation niya is to forward it to the office of the Speaker. Now, once it's in the Speaker's office, may 10 session days the Speaker to include it in the order of business. No? Now, before it is included in the order of business, kung may mag-file pa, may obligasyon pa rin ng Secretary General to transmit the same, all other complaints to the office of the Speaker para doon na i-present sa plenaryo, i-include sa order of business.
Oho. Tapos pagka nandun na po sa order of business, tsaka na po pipili kung alin po yung pinaka matibay.
Okay. Doon na pipili yung plenaryo po. Kung anong complaint ang i-refer nila to the Committee on Justice.
Okay. So at what point, it will only be deemed initiated pagdating po ng Committee on Justice pag na-refer na ho?
Yes, ma'am. Tama po.
Oo. Okay. What was wrong with what happened to the impeachment complaint against the Vice President?
Ang sinabi po ng Supreme Court that time was that there were 4 impeachment complaints, no? 3 filed by persons, no? And groups. And yung 4th is yung endorsed by more than 1/3 of the members of the House. Na parang consolidation of all the impeachment complaints. So parang panibagong complaint din yun. Yun ang pinili na i-endorse ng more than 1/3. The rest were archived. Ang mali doon, kasi sabi ng Supreme Court, is that inaksyonan, in-archive muna ang 3 before inaksyonan yung 4th, no? Which is actually the other way around based on our motion for reconsideration. So by acting on the first 3, they said that it already barred the filing of the 4th complaint.
So the archiving was deemed as action upon the impeachment complaint.
Yes, ma'am.
But it was not referred yet to the Committee on Justice.
Not referred because the securing of more than 1/3 of the vote no longer requires the action of the Committee on Justice under our rules.
Okay. So dito nga po yung ito nga po yung subject ng motion for reconsideration. And so now to be able to not commit any possible violations with the upcoming filing or impeachment complaints, how will Congress adjust while there is no ruling yet by the Supreme Court or decision on this, final decision on this?
Yan din ang problema namin ngayon di ba? Kasi do we amend our rules to conform with the ruling of the Supreme Court or do we wait for the Supreme Court to decide on the motion for reconsideration that's been pending for quite some time, no? At kaya nga, parang gusto ko nga sanang manawagan sa Supreme Court na desisyonan nyo na ng maaga para at least we will be guided accordingly, no? We cannot let's say act based on our old rules and just let someone bring it up before the Supreme Court again and have it struck down again for not following whatever rules that the Supreme Court may have added.
Because in effect, if this is not changed by the Supreme Court, then hindi po ito pwede magtagal sa opisina ng Secretary General.
Yes, definitely hindi talaga to dapat magtagal sa opisina ng Secretary General. So as session resumes, I would most likely think that she would immediately transmit it to the office of the Speaker.
Okay, so now is the time to be able to consolidate. Are you hearing that there will be another impeachment complaint filed against the Vice President, and when will that come?
The only thing I heard about that was the comments made by Congressman Erice, that there have been some groups associated with the Dutertes that have been asking him, if he wanted to sign the impeachment complaint against the president. That's the only thing I've heard of. But if, as I said earlier, if there are others who would like to file a stronger impeachment complaint, if they think that this one has been designed to fail, then by all means, they should file that impeachment complaint. Para at least naman, we're sure that the process of the impeachment process is respected. It's not like parang pinaglalaruan lang ng kahit sino just to put in place the one-year bar rule.
Okay, let's take a look at the complaint filed by lawyer Andre De Jesus. This was endorsed by House Deputy Minority Leader and Puso Pinoy Party List Representative Journey Jet Nisay. Ito po ay culpable violation of the Constitution, betrayal of public trust, graft and corruption for four grounds: surrendering the former president to the ICC. Drug use, which deems him unfit to serve, his failure to veto on program appropriations, and the creation of ICI to shield allies from corruption. How strong are these allegations, do you think? Because nga po of the one that you mentioned a while ago, na kailangan magpresenta ng ebidensya sa House. To the accused also.
Again, hindi ko pa nakita yung attachments niya. Kung may attachments pa siyang ebidensya to show that this alleged impeachable offense is supported by either facts or evidence, di ba? Kasi sabi ko nga, dapat let facts lead the discussion, not emotions or political noise. Kasi sayang lang yung oras din ng House, sayang lang din ng oras ng tao kung ang ifa-file na impeachment complaint is just parang flimsy lang, na para lang sabihin may nag-file ng impeachment against the president. And again, for those who are saying that mahina yun, then look for better grounds para kayo mismo mag-file ng impeachment complaint. No one would be stopping you from filing any impeachment complaint.
But the term of betrayal of public trust is quite broad.
Yes.
It's a catch-all phrase saying that an official is unfit for office, there is inexcusable negligence or abuse of power or cronyism. Given nga po na the state of the flood control probe right now, sa House Speaker pa nga lang sinasabi na ng presidente wala pang ebidensya na nagtuturo yung tawag dito yung solid concrete evidence. Papaano pa kung sa presidente? But we do know there is such a thing as command responsibility. Yeah. But could that be a strong basis for impeachment? What kind of facts are you looking for?
Well, at least man lang facts that should lead that he allowed these things to happen. That at the very least na parang may participation siya. Even if he did not sign any document, even if there's no evidence that he actually received money, but if there can be at least evidence that will show that he purposely allowed these things to happen while he was the president, then maybe that may be sufficient grounds. Because as you've said, that ground is so broad, no? Na kahit ano lang, no? Na mawalan ng betrayal of the public trust is so broad, no? Na kahit ano lang ang pwede mong sabihin, basta it leads to the loss of public trust, then that should be a ground for impeachment, no?
Kumbaga, direct involvement ho ang hinahanap po ninyo at hindi lang negligence.
Hindi naman direct involvement, but it should be involvement in such a way that would lead a person to believe na may alam siya, na pinayagan niya, na parang tinolerate niya as president, na when he should have stopped it in the first place.
Well, his failure to veto the unprogrammed appropriations was something that could be interpreted as tolerating this. Unprogrammed appropriations ballooned under his time from 2023 up to 2025. Laki po ng tinaas po niyan. And in the recent budget, ito lang din ho ang kanyang binawasan, pero hindi pa natanggal ng buong buo. And I mean, isn't that enough evidence for you?
No, because unprogrammed funds are unprogrammed funds, no? What's important is that if the unprogrammed funds were used properly, then there is going to be no issue about it. The issue here is that these unprogrammed funds were used improperly. Yan ang problema. But it was after the release of these unprogrammed funds na dun na ang mga kalokohan na nangyari. It's not like you did not veto the unprogrammed funds knowing that it will not be used properly, knowing that it will end up in ghost projects. Ibang usapan yun. But not vetoing it with the hope that these unprogrammed funds would be properly implemented is a crime in itself.
Congressman Toby Chanco relayed witnessing the president getting mad at the House Speaker and Congressman Zaldi Co over ito nga yung sa budget, budget issues, parang sumusobra na kayo, ganun. Isn't that tantamount to admitting that the president has knowledge of what was being done to the budget?
You know, since Toby Chanco says that he has personal knowledge of these events, then the best thing that should have been done is that for Toby Chanco to himself file that impeachment complaint. Because siya yung may personal knowledge. He says he was present and he was there, he overheard these things. Then that would show, or that would prove, that the president has personal knowledge na may nangyayaring kalokohan sa baba, di ba? But other than that, it will just be his word against whatever, no? Na nangyayari ngayon.
Okay. Kung sakasakali ho, ito, dalawa ho ang impeachment complaint na magsasabay. Paano kaya? How will Congress deal with this?
Well, it will both be presented before the plenary, no? Kung i-include yan ni Speaker in the order of business. And the plenary will decide which one to forward to the Committee on Justice.
Which one? So, or paano kung kasi dalawang officials po yan? Pwede po sabay yan, di ba? Tama ho? Kung sakasakali ho ay, because the Makabayan Bloc said that they will initiate an impeachment complaint against the Vice President again. So, we're expecting two impeachment complaints. One against the President, one against the Vice President. As to how many against them, yun po yung that is yet to be determined. And so, how do you imagine that going and how will Congress manage it kung dalawa po ang lumusot po dito?
Well, as I've said, no, it's just like any other bill. No? The Committee on Justice has several bills pending that we try to act on a daily basis. No? So, if there's one impeachment complaint, we'll just treat it as parang an ordinary bill lang din that was referred to our committee. If there's another impeachment complaint against the Vice President, then this also gonna be treated like any other bill that has been filed before the Committee on Justice. So, parang we can handle both naman. We can just schedule it. It's not like full-time, yun lang ang pag-uupuan namin at pag-discussion na namin ang isang impeachment complaint. It can be done simultaneously nga. Scheduling lang ang problemahin namin.
Now, what happens if there's no ruling from the Supreme Court on the motion for reconsideration as Congress resumes? What will be done? Because the SC seems or appears to be immune to pressure on acting on pending cases.
Yeah, that's a problem that will have to be resolved by the House leadership, whether or not to amend our own rules on impeachment to comply or to conform with the decision of the Supreme Court, or do we follow our own old rules, no, and claim that anyway there's still a pending motion for reconsideration, so that decision is not yet final as far as our rules is concerned.
Oo. So if when it comes to timelines, meron po bang concrete timelines sa pinaka-conservative ho dito to be able to make sure that wala pong nababiolate?
Well, the fastest really would be from 26, 10 session days. Dapat included na in the calendar of business. And then once it's included in the calendar of business, ang referral na to the Committee on Justice. Another maximum of 3 days din.
Ito po ay working days, calendar days.
Session days.
Session days. Okay. So matagal-tagal ho ito. And hopefully there is a ruling there, but if not, medyo clear-cut naman, no? Kailangan mabilis to.
Yes, ma'am. Now, we don't want to hold the nation din parang in suspense, di ba? So let's deal with it because this is part of our system, no? Parang they say that we're for stability, no? Stability must always come with accountability also. So this is a process that we just have to go through.
But you also had a comment saying that Supreme Court may have committed an overreach in declaring the Duterte impeachment unconstitutional. Can you elaborate on this?
Well, my comment about the overreach was the fact that they've been saying that we should do this, no? Parang dinagdagan nila yung rules namin on how we will be handling impeachment cases. Now, supposedly we are co-equal branches. We don't tell them that they should not let cases sit for 10 years, di ba? Minsan more pa nga, di ba? Because that's their own rules. And we respect them as a co-equal branch of government. Just as the same way as they should respect the House of Representatives or the Senate or Congress for that matter in how we determine what rules we should follow as far as impeachment cases are concerned. Because impeachment cases is solely within the powers of Congress and the House of Representatives. And how we go about it should be determined by ourselves as kami naman yung gumagawa ng sariling rules namin. And that's why I said that when the Supreme Court decision came out with the decision adding more na requirements sa rules namin on procedure on how to go about an impeachment complaint, I thought that was really an overreach on the part of the Supreme Court.
I do remember that there was a time in history where the impeachment court did not follow a Supreme Court ruling. They voted not to follow. So that is possible here. Na hahayaan nyo na kung wala pong sagot ng Supreme Court, kayo na pong magdidesisyon.
That was the Senate during the trial, no? But for the House, I will have to leave it up to the House leadership, on how they want to go about it.
Okay. Is it infinitely harder now to get an impeachment complaint through, to your opinion?
No, not necessarily. It's the same process that we go through, no? Same lang din talaga ang procedure, except lang for the additional yung making sure that each member will get a copy of the complaint and the evidence is attached, and that the respondent should be given reasonable time to answer also. That's the only thing that has been technically added. No?
And also, the evidence should be presented to the accused.
Yes.
And given
That
time
too.
to respond. Hindi po ba dapat sa trial na ho yun? What are your thoughts on that?
That's what we were saying nga di ba? Ang determination kasi ng whether there's sufficient evidence to go through with an impeachment rests solely on us. Dapat kami ang mag-determine yan. Anong ebidensya ang ipapakita in the trial should be in the trial at the Senate, not at the level when we determine whether or not we should impeach the person or not. Diba? So that's where the overreach also came in. Na parang pinapatry nyo na sa amin at this stage pa lang Nga dapat ang gagawin lang namin is determine kung impeachable offense ba yung final na complaint against the person who is supposed to be impeached.
So in that sense, is it infinitely harder to get an impeachment complaint through?
That's if we follow the rules that have been laid down by the Supreme Court in their ruling, which is, again, as I've said, subject of a motion for reconsideration.
Okay, we do hope that the Supreme Court's ruling on this will make it on time. else we might see a constitutional crisis at hand. No? Okay, maraming salamat for your time today and for breaking that down for us. We have Bukidnon Representative, Vice Chairman of the Committee on Justice, Jonathan Keith Flores.
Thank you, Gretchen.
And coming up, self-rated poverty in the Philippines plummeted to 37% in the final quarter of 2025, down from 54% in September. Octa Research fellow Guido David joins us next to help us break down Octa's latest survey. We'll be back after this quick break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here in One News. Former Senator Bong Revilla is back in jail over a non-bailable case connected to a supposed ghost project in Bulacan. Mobile Journal Erice de Santos with the report.
Former Senator Bong Revilla was obviously distraught when he arrived at the Sandigan Bayan around 10 in the morning on Tuesday. With him were his wife, Cavite 2nd District Representative Lani Mercado, and PNP CIDG personnel. Revilla surrendered to the CIDG in its headquarters in Kamkrame, Quezon City at past 9 in the evening on Monday. Like any detainee, Revilla went through the standard booking procedure. He had his fingerprints and mugshots taken. However, the PNP did not release any of the photos. Revilla also underwent a medical exam and the result?
Alam mo naman, action star si sir, kaya very fit po siya.
The warrant for his arrest came on January 19. The next day, Revilla was accompanied to the Sandigan Bayan by no less than DILG Secretary John Vic Remulla.
He called me last night at mga 8 o'clock nung lumabas yung warrant. Sabi ko mag-surrender na siya peacefully. So pumunta siya sa CIDG.
Revilla is charged with a non-bailable case of malversation of public funds through falsification of public documents. That's over the 92.8 million peso ghost flood control project in Pandi, Bulacan. His co-accused were 6 officials from the DPWH Bulacan 1st District Engineering Office, including Bryce Hernandez and JP Mendoza. Shortly after, the former senator's son, Agimat Party List Representative Brian Revilla, and Cavite 1st District Representative Jolie Revilla also arrived. Revilla was ordered jail at the new Quezon City Jail in Payatas. But before he was brought there, he first paid a 90,000 peso bail for another case, graft at the Sandigan Bayan 4th Division. Then he left a brief message to all his supporters who went to the anti-graft court to rally behind him. At the moment, Revilla is in the male dormitory of the new Quezon City Jail, but his camp is worried about his security in the BJMP sanctioned facility. They filed a motion to have his custody back to the PNP custodial facility, where he was also detained years ago over alleged involvement in the pork barrel scam. The Sandigan Bayan said it has also received an appeal from acting PNP Chief Jose Nartates Jr. that said having Remulla in their custody will entail additional costs and security detail. On Friday, January 23, Revilla will have an arraignment over this case. A hearing on his motion to transfer detention facilities will also be conducted. Kapatid Arles de los Santos, we are One News.
The Department of Justice is expected to formally request custody of former DPWH District Engineer Henry Alcantara from the Senate this week. Alcantara has already been declared a state witness and is now under the Witness Protection Program. Acting Justice Secretary Frederick Vida said the DOJ is still working on operational and security preparations before transferring Alcantara's custody, emphasizing that the location must remain confidential. The DOJ also confirmed that other state witnesses, former DPWH Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo, former DPWH NCR Director Gerard Opulencia, and contractor Sally Santos are under strict monitoring by the WPP.
We will make a formal request, no? So we're making arrangements. We don't want to preempt, no? Kasi tandaan nyo, may mga security concerns. We should be err on the side of caution. Diba? So medyo ingat tayo. Kasi remember, diba, they are critical witnesses and they hold pieces, very important pieces of evidence for us to prove our case, no? Against the accused. So medyo ingat tayo. Dagdag ingat tayo.
Self-rated poverty in the country fell to 37% in the last quarter of 2025. That's according to the latest survey from Okta Research. Now, this figure is lower than the previous quarter's 54%. Okta attributed the drop to bonuses and ongoing government assistance. The same Okta survey reported a dramatic decline in food poverty, dropping to 19% from 49% in the previous quarter. Joining us now to help us understand the latest numbers, we have Okta Research fellow Guido David talking about this latest survey by Okta on self-rated poverty. Magandang umaga. Welcome back to the show.
Yes, good morning, Gretchen, and to our viewers and listeners at Morning Matters, and belated Happy New Year.
Belated Happy New Year. There are dramatic changes to these numbers, no? 17 percentage points lower in terms of self-rated poverty. At pagdating naman sa food poverty, there was a 19 percentage point decline. How do you explain those numbers? What stood out to you in this latest survey?
Well, it stands out kasi Gretchen. So we have been monitoring self-rated poverty and food poverty since 2022. Every quarter, isa yan sa mga probes that we regularly ask as public service. So we want to monitor the economic situation in the country. This is different from, let's say, the PSA data, because they get the actual economic numbers like household income, etc. Pero our survey is different because it asks about their perception, if they are feeling that they're poor or if they're not poor. So this is a nationwide survey with 1,200 respondents. And what stands out is that since 2022, this is the lowest number we have seen for self-rated poverty at 37. Yung previous low was something like mga 40, I think 41. And so, this is good news for our kababayans. Yeah, actually, the previous low was 41 at the start of at October 2022. So it was at 54 last September, and it went down to 37%. We also see na uneven yung decline niya in some areas like Metro Manila, Luzon, and Visayas. There's a decrease in poverty and food poverty, but not in some place like Mindanao, where it's still
the same.
Yeah, it's still up. It actually increased slightly. So, but we don't ask what the reasons are, pero we attribute this. Of course, may mga Christmas bonuses, but this was conducted December 3 to 11. Some people get their Christmas bonuses early. May mga there are also amelioration programs. But what I noticed, of course, is that inflation has already been stabilized. It's at 1.8%, which is a healthy inflation rate. It won't ever get to zero kasi some economic growth is still preferred. But it's not the high inflation that we have been seeing before years ago. Also, our unemployment rate is down to about 4%. So these are good numbers that I think helps. So I think government programs have been working, yung Kadiwa centers, access to food. In years past, we have seen some spikes in prices of some basic goods like onions or rice. Pero right now, we're not seeing that. And I think that has helped stabilize the prices of goods, and access to food has improved. And I think aside from the amelioration programs, hopefully we're seeing businesses coming back. Businesses are good for the economy kasi they bring jobs and they help our kababayans get employment.
But Guido, if you go around, marami ng negosyo nagsasabi. Actually, nakikita ko rin online ito at pag nagtanong-tanong ka, na nagtitipid ang mga tao nung last quarter. Parang hindi raw pareho yung gastos compared to the previous years. Is that not reflected in these numbers? How do you explain that, the disparity in what these numbers show, the ratings on self-rated poverty, and also actual spending?
Well, maybe that's part of the reason, Gretchen. Maybe people are
Tipid.
smarter with money, and that's why they're not feeling as poor anymore. Maybe binawasan nila yung mga extra expenses nila. I mean, even for some businesses, I'm seeing na for basic needs, businesses are still good. But for some of the other, let's say, yung mga more luxury, it has been affected, except for businesses that cater to, those with money, who still have, extra funds for these expenses. So mga extra expenses. But for the average Filipino, maybe they have become better with their budgeting. I mean, that's possible. Kaya maybe they don't feel as poor anymore. I know that some people, or maybe a lot, actually take on more than one job just to be able to survive, or not just survive, but to be able to afford their
Save,
needs, pambayad ng mga expenses ng na rent, vehicles. So maybe we have become more resilient in a way. So that's possible. But we'll see. Kasi we conduct this survey every quarter, so we'll see if the trend continues or if it was really just a byproduct of the December, Christmas season, and baka pagdating ng first quarter by March, baka tumaas na naman, which is possible because this is not these things never are not usually long-term trends unless of course we are able to find long-term solutions for our problems, which I'm hoping the government will have long-term solutions for the Filipinos.
Okay. Does self-rated poverty reflect actual income, or is this more of self-perception?
It's self-perception kasi we see that even for ABC, some members of the ABC, some respondents, actually 10% consider themselves poor. Of course, sa socioeconomic class E, 61% consider themselves poor. So that's not expected, or that's not unexpected rather. But for socioeconomic class E, 4% actually consider themselves not poor. So it's possible that maybe iba-iba naman yung situation. Maybe some of them don't earn as much, but they can afford their basic needs. Whereas 51% of ABC consider themselves not poor. So maybe a lot of them, even though 10% of them, even though they're earning enough to be called C or B or A, they still consider themselves poor because maybe their spending is not matching what they're earning.
Pero in terms of your numbers and your respondents, ilan % ang nanggagaling sa Class E, D, and ABC?
Majority still comes from D. I think more than 60% from D. So that's still the bulk of the Filipino population. Sa E, it's smaller, around 30, and ABC is only around 10%. So,
so you mirrored the population.
Yes.
Okay. Hindi po ba, pag sinabing bonuses natin, isn't that something that we do experience every last quarter of the year, every December? So what made this stand out? Why do you think was there a dramatic shift? What was the difference? Because bonuses come every year.
Right. And you're right, Gretchen. So, in fact, last year, we didn't see the significant drop in the self-rated poverty in December. So maybe because of the inflation then, in 2023 and 2024, we were still seeing significant inflation. And right now, inflation has stabilized. Oil prices have been stable at around 50 plus. So these factors, I think, help contribute. And maybe mas sanay na tayo sa prices of goods, and we're able to budget our expenses a lot better. So again, we will see siguro after this quarter, I mean by March, when we have our next survey, is if this trend will hold, or I expect it will probably uptick slightly. Maybe it will go back up to mga 40s. That's just my own personal prediction. Usually lower talaga pag December. But hopefully it won't get back to 54 like it was no September.
Kasi marami kang pera pag December, pag ito ng January, puro utang na, marami ka nang babayaran. Okay,
Yes,
there's another number here, which is food poverty, which also experienced a 19 percentage point decline. Is that significant?
Yes, the food poverty is actually usually correlated in with self-rated poverty. Although we just ask it as sort of a balancing question, or as a comparison. When we say food poor, if they're not able to access good food, nutritious food, then they would consider themselves food poor. 30% is also the lowest we've seen for food poverty. So may connection din naman siya doon sa self-rated poverty. Again, this is good news, and maybe connected din dito yung access to affordable food, Kadiwa centers, some of the programs of the national government.
Bakit kaya mataas pa rin o iba yung nagiging resulta sa Mindanao?
Good question. When we break down the numbers, we see na sa Metro Manila bumaba yung poverty and food poverty, pati sa Balanced Luzon, and even sa Visayas. Sa Mindanao, it remains high. It is actually a good question that I can't answer because I don't have eyes on the ground in Mindanao. I'm not from there. But we should ask those questions. Are they getting the same access to food in Mindanao? Are they getting jobs in Mindanao? This is not just an accountability of the national government, but din yung local governments sa Mindanao. So we should take a good look at what's happening in Mindanao. Bakit may mga kababayan tayo who are feeling food poor sa Mindanao? I mean, what's going on? So there should be more coordination with the national and the local governments in Mindanao as well.
Along with this survey, do you have data on what the primary concerns of Filipinos are? Is that included here? And what should government prioritize now to prevent families from slipping back? Is it prices? Is it jobs? Is it targeted aid?
Yeah, we regularly ask yung urgent personal concerns and urgent national concerns. Hindi pa na-release yung data na yan, so I can't answer that. But as of last quarter, the top concerns were still food security, jobs, income, health, and kasama na rin sa top concerns yung yung corruption in the government. Although yung leading concerns are still economic factors, health factors, food security, and access to needs. So and I expect that it will continue to be the same paglabas ng data namin.
If you take a look at the economy, the Philippine government has not hit its target by a small percentage, parang nasa 5-something%,
Yes.
para from a higher, I think 5.6 ba yung yung target
yes.
ng Pilipinas, pero we didn't reach that. But would you say that the economy is relatively stable?
Yes, we didn't reach the GDP target. I think 4% is the number, the actuals, and the target was, you're right, it's around 5-point-something%, maybe 5.5, 5.6% was the target. So we didn't reach that. But the GDP as a whole naman, although it's a strong economic indicator, it's tied to the whole country. But I think yung individuals on the ground, most of the average Filipinos will not feel the GDP effects din naman, because this is a macroeconomic feature. What we're seeing is more of yung immediate needs natin, is our monthly income enough to pay for our needs. And as we mentioned earlier, because nag-stabilize the inflation, maybe it's sufficient, and maybe because Filipinos are able to budget their finances, and some of them are taking on second jobs or sidelines, or business sila on the side. They're doing maybe iba social media business, being an influencer or something like that, to help sustain their lifestyles.
And with all of these developments, do you think that's enough to somehow arrest concerns over political unrest? We do know that alongside all of this talk on the economy, we are on the verge of a political crisis. If we are still not yet in that state, Do you think being able to control all these things, self-rated poverty, prices, inflation, would be enough to keep people from doing anything that would be pivotal to Philippine governance?
Well, I'm still hearing a lot of noise about the political, situation, the corruption. But we're seeing some events happening, some changes. Meron na mga, we're seeing the continued hearings ng Senate, and some outcomes are happening, ongoing. So I think the political, I won't say it's unrest, but at least the awareness is still there. I don't think it will go away. Lalo na pagdating ng tag-ulan, Gretchen, baka magkakaroon ulit ng pagbaha. So even though this is a good indicator, and it's telling the government that they're in the right direction, we have to continue doing good things for the Filipino people para maging mas masaya sila. I don't think na, this is enough. I mean, it helps, but I think the political situation is as it is right now, and people still want to see results in that.
All right. Okay, maraming salamat for giving us that report on the latest Octa Research Survey on self-rated poverty. We have Octa Research Fellow Guido David. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Gretchen. Good morning.
And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we're giving you the right start to your morning. Let's go ahead and make the day matter. My name is Gretchen Ho. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time.